Gombo Chunin Jola Zelo Zencho Denbo Chemin Dai Sendo Jawan Jola Zelo De Jin Sewa Song Nyomen Chujin Jola Zelo Gombo Duje Chede Tanje Jimbe Denbo Bo Sono Yuden Jazo Dejen Shilo Changzelo Dogen De Chang Chewo Geyen Me Song Le Zhu Xian Jidu Dong Chu Chu Xian Ju Chu Lo Changzelo Zhu Ne Zhu Yue Na Yang Lo Ba Do Lo Ra Do Ne Xin Ge Dong Ba Yin De Yuan De La Yang Changzelo De Ba Jie Yang Me Yang 要我平松所保险，让给三年永寿，天天上见担保业，各忙着的忙呢，就忙西伯就不动，没浪落到追到，这些就能得到，是能得越当接着忙，国防团内就这点，我当那当七月老主。 随便做点着我哟。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with the greatest gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure, and they neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, The mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. And the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Lam Rim 小姐作我的了所我的，多劫见波的心多劫长，就是的罗波东罗罗波，边穷中边波东好的长，鸟来心罗觉罗所我的。上波多面一年闹着的，秋天的月的东周边边，再上过山的年是年波，要见雪边见了所望的，要愿月面胸前的着挡，大王朝波这边可就见。上界国中宝宝有些说，咱们大别接了所望的，协助当别穷我的想，嘎当天边面光中的节，连就那些过去送了送，嘎当那么那了所望的。刚见心的世界中国梦，我到这边我手接着你，到我这边到我给着你，要是举报接了说我的，就说跟的老忙多结成，刚老刚的些年去做呢。就当天梦我中走在边，只见那么那了所我的，让将所着跟了到夜明，点上他把这边中我中，在人这边他看在把一，算在千年那了所我的。见我更多样道那么道，这面却见白了龙学经，草东龙觉应天绕座的，多觉常见过，念多有双见就能做觉就能了，想求不多他能就做见。大概七千这边错能见，罗罗平时上见如波出上见就，昨天就能拿相处不多到内就做见，大概七千这边错能见，罗罗平时上见如波出。上见就。昨天就能拿相处不多，当年就做的，大概之前这边所能的，罗罗平时上见如不有。哎呀，嗯，哎呀，他们是对了，嗯，看是我的，他短情不记住也应该是告诉爸爸生了的，那个呢，这我说给把新旧了不就经验经验也呢。嗯，时间统计了，你的这玩意儿看啥都是严的，时间统计跟对的看着如果都打的呢，他其实，你人呢让你一娘西结巴了的呢，人他听到就搞啥，他跟着进度谁去是吧？他点嘛动作上面都是那个投机娘头呢，双向的进来，那我就去年教过是搞样子呢，那小技能我就上当当的手机，叫我什么事情了哇？他听到全部手机了，你就我说的这类的哇。
So it is here, how do we really accomplish a great purpose? How do we really accomplish the meaningful life? So it is a great masters of the past, where they have analyzed very carefully and having a genuine sense of caring and sense of connectedness, compassion towards all other sentient beings, to fulfill the purpose of all other sentient beings. They first analyze carefully what kind of methods and skillful means that is required for him or her to fulfill the wishes or the purpose of other sentient beings. It is therefore, they not only just wish to fulfill the purpose of the sentient beings, they actually took the initiative of fulfilling the wishes of fulfilling the purpose of other sentient beings by engaging and following the proper practice. Having undertaken a proper practice, they have achieved the skillful means, the skill set for working for the welfare of other sentient beings. So here now, when we look at this point, when we look at these teachings, we really feel ourselves as a very fortunate to be able to follow such precious teachings, the teachings that have been taught by the great masters and practiced.
대양지 대파선의 지만이 법에는 네파지 명언의 해와이나 네파디기 수고를 신주전에 된주기 나서때 자에게 더 가른도 따네 네 신주 타신바지 제바 소리지래도
It's just like someone who is seriously ill and went to clinic to see their physicians. Having visited the physicians actually analyze very carefully and what kind of sickness that person is having, what kind of medicine that is needed for the individual. This is how we actually analyze ourselves and what kind of skill set that is needed for one to fulfill one's own purpose and that of other sentient beings.
되게 가서 다 라라로 간접도 두고서나니 맞속에 주비긴 내다데 생이 천원이기 토네 로와 다 생이 천원데 이메인 조가 간접도 두세요 디토네로 당가서 거스 번에파 신주 제서 내가 做切学的 아니 생주 천원이 또는 조가 간접도 소야 돼 된거는 신주 제냥시제는 소자죠 제로와
So it is by means of completely focusing on our subjectivity rather than focus on object of an external object. So by analyzing one's own mind and how do we really bring about change within one's mind and what kind of skillful means that is needed for bringing about transformation of one's own thoughts and emotions.
다 된적이 단다 침보치는 줘발라네 토마치 맞을 때 이제 찾아는 게제 내 랑견 된저 나가 되냐나 덤버 투병보 아니 나마서 손질은 시행지 되지 나마서 뭐라 된저지라네 달 랑제집에 나마서 거기에 제미 받체 아니 텔레 자체 돈도나 조신 요소 줘봐 되면은 제바에만 당가서 거수 봐봐 나리 친이 저와 인사는 아니 랑제집에 나마는 거기에 제미 받체 아니 랑게 타고도 아니 랑게 전체 파마저비 아니 세제 단계랑이 더 미에다 아니 대두 지바 아니 조구에 지바 더바 지바 된저이 더바 지송이 세제 단계게 단다되니 대래 거스 법은 디토는 주투도 당문에 조구인다 주투어지 이제 뭐네 같이 드지기 친해져서 지를 해미에서 선반으로 세슈당 아니 저와당 아니 대바당 들리지 제소나 아니 선바대 야르 거에 저와 친구로
So now it is therefore in order to accomplish the purpose of one's own self and causing others to accomplish their purpose, here now as usual, let's begin with visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni before oneself in the space, surrounded by all under lineage gurus of Lam Rim Chenmo, or if one is familiar with visualizing the entire mirrored fields, one can do so. If that is not, then at this point we are receiving the teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo. We can visualize Buddha Shakyamuni surrounded by other Lam Rim lineage gurus, and then imagining being yourself in their presence. Yourself is also surrounded by all other sentient beings, and understanding that how similar wish that all other sentient beings have as we do to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So therefore, extending your genuine compassion towards all those sentient beings and cultivating an irreversible faith towards the mirrored field that you have visualized. So with this visualizations, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate.
대중 와서 저러 잖아 지 소소기 현대 나나리 쇼케네리네 에 삼반을 좋아를 천사바지 제해토야는 배전치 제데 와서 야제도도 되는 것 주는 마도 이제 다시 개개면도 하소에다 샤세다 면제피에도 제레다 샘바 야보서에 때다 인지미지 산나도는 좋았던 마도 다시 진메레다.
Although that reciting sadhanas, mantras, and all kind of chantings enables one to accumulate merits. But what really brings about transformation and change of one's mind is really by contemplations. So contemplation is the key factor to bringing about change of one's mind, bringing about transformation of one's mind.
되지. 대 인바도 가서 간절하고 월세서나 와서 깨지기면 답변 주어 줘비게 천안해와 대야 산나도는 해 그거래. 다 될래야 하잖아요. 고인님이다. 아니 답이 편해야 되는 해 그래. 아니 되네 신경을 써와도 이제도 아니 돈요도 별로 생각이 타도기 시대적이게 시바보대 장기 생이던 강전에 요도이마도 진면도 하신다. 그래서 가서 수치 차제만 로에지마도 쪼드레면도
So it is very true that without contemplations or meditations, it is not possible for one to bring about change in one's mind. For instance, let's think about how do we, understand the impermanent nature of phenomena. In other words, the the transcendental nature of phenomena is by contemplations. Without contemplations or without meditations, it is not possible for us to understand how things actually change momentarily. Similarly, to have a proper understanding of the faults of samsaric existence or faults of samsara and the good qualities of or the benefits of achieving liberations or the moksha are all achieved by means of meditating or contemplations. And then also, furthermore, of understanding emptiness and bodhicittas are all done on the basis of meditations. So the meditation is a key factor for achievements of one's accomplishment of one's spiritual realizations. Of course, the other practices such as reciting mantra and so on will become a contributory factor for the development of one's spiritual realizations. So far as actual cause of spiritual development is concerned, is the meditations. The meditation is the only primary factor for your spiritual development.
네. 다 용 첨부 시작제나 세나레 다 가서 지름보치 시작해서는 원래 이파 체다 명이 뭐 자체 자롱에지 최년에 저기나 지름보치서 동보 자체 더버 만도체 바도 줄루 통치 용루 통치 담바샤 타만인 색변데 냥서랑 생기데 다 데레 다 용나.
So it is therefore Lama Tsongkhapa stated that first one must try one's best to receive the teachings as vast as possible, in other words, as much as possible. Having received all the teachings, you have gained all those hearing of the teachings. One then try to contemplate on the meanings of all the teachings that you have received. Once you have contemplated on the meanings of those teachings, on the instructions, one then followed by engaging in the practice day and night.
다대기 지당 전용으로 도체 당가서 등에 사체 되겠다. 너네 당가 나래 전부게 자유 사체 제제 주고 전부 때문에 법이 쳐와서네. 전부 투병 한 번에 랑게 제제 자유라면 봐제니 구성도 제바 나타 간조여야 되니 사제 동보 되지.
So now let's begin with reading those four major outlines. The first outline is the greatness of the authors, given in order to show the teachings has noble souls. So think about how all those authors, the teachers, are authentic when it comes to the showing the spiritual path to their disciples, beginning from Buddha Shakyamuni and thinking about reflecting one's mind upon the qualities and their backgrounds of those teachers, all the way to one's fruit guru. So then it is those the noble teachers giving those teachings to their disciples, their followers, by giving the teachings with compassionately towards all their followers. So therefore, the showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings. This is the second outlines.
세월아 펜다 대화기 때서는 죄첨부 아니 든지기 송되라 펜디기 죄첨부 펜다 대화기 때를 송데 아니 펜보 용사 때내래 대화 용사 때내래 산제지 때마다 펜다 대화 종이 내성으로. So
therefore such teachers and the teachings are known as Hindi ter, which means the treasure of benefit and goodness.
네, 된적이네 송들라 네 전에 집에 가라 네 가게 집으로서나 네 덤바당 덤바 인가기 공부되나 네 라지선제 단계 된데 대화 유해지기 네 공부 시샤와 인자네 대단 팀비토네 네 전에 정인 인가기 다다가서 제 뒤로 들지랑가서 지역이 샤드 단계 명예지기 지 된적이 랜데 지자와나 가게 지적으로서 되는 도산이잖아 나 야사시나 다 네 상주기 생 오늘 마다 주마 천재 요새네 네 전에 제거 소화가
So it is therefore both the teachings and the authors who actually taught the teachings are all directed towards the benefiting other sentient beings, solely for the benefit of other sentient beings. So it is therefore we as the followers of those great masters, we must try our best, to the fullest extent of one's ability to follow their footsteps, and if possible, by engaging in the practice of bodhicitta and wisdom, realizing emptiness, and so forth.
他这一设计是不当帮工就那么觉得这一是吧？你对了，你这一设计你，然后就找我现在对比出来，电脑逻辑大上是吧？你。
So then, this will be then be followed by the two other outlines that are how to rely on the spiritual teacher, which is the root of one's path. And having relied on the teacher, then the students train their mind in order, having relied on the teachers and how to train the disciples' mind.
다른 것에 동보 자체 토바 모두 세세도 투사된 아니 세단데 비게 신이라 토고아 인자네 동보 그런 맞소 내 가디는 맞소기 최단지 주장한지 70%이 도산 고속권의 개체시나 대시용으로 사제 코너 지도모의 시나 또 토마토 보이모로 동보 투고고여나 투사대 세단데 비게 신이 토고아 인자네 동보랑 지도하게 신이 된지도 소용으로.
So as we mentioned earlier, that first one need to receive the teachings as much as one can, as vast as one could, right? We talked about that. So then one thing that is important is to understand that when speaking about receiving the teachings, making sure that the teaching, the teacher from whom that you are receiving must be the authentic teacher, must be the qualified teachers.
当我设计工作中去吧，那东北工作他们就你这些啊，你电的逻辑大像有什么了？你第一点了，你不能比去够的，你不接单能比去年去，他东北这啥？他你不接单能比去的了，你让接那家了，你不接这单，你不能去我去，他东北这啥？他你不能去我的了，送就不穷人到听么样，让这人把粮食连去，就不人到听么样，人把粮食连去，就不千遍让这人把粮食连去去，他东北人这啥？他就不千遍让这人把粮食连去了送。提前了就别过当把三节考那点吧，三节的级别就三节的小把老路吹去，到东北人这次的，到三节的小把老路吹的了送，三节的老把老路不比较这样，老把老路比三节门主把点吧，老把老路比人把你写吧去，到东北人这次，到老把老路比人把你写吧的了，这年节。贴吧全部接了了，这个贴吧都贴吧了，去去，他东北了，松节，上山节老把路上的上往上呢就是就当把从那接单那边去去，他东北人这次，到从那接单那边去的了，你看了比些，带老板呢就去，带了别人吧去，他东北人这次，他带了别人吧的了，然后啥去你去，人小把接了这个贴吧都发现他们人了去去，他东北了啥去你去。rangi ju chu me ba she ba ni pharo de she ba lo ze da yin ji ju me ba she ma de mo ba she la lo che je da dong bo la yang dong bo la zhu che ni she ba la lo chu chu zhen lo zhe ni she ba lo zhe sanju lo zi sanden lo zi shiro lo zi ye je ta de no ge dombo phashe dombo ni lo zi de ji chane ta somba de ni zebi phashe la lo zi ye je ta zebi phashe la zebi ngo ni de gang ba la ju be ta zebi ro de ya wa de da gang bi zi je da ju ba ni de da ge ten de wa ta nga zo de de jing ya lo do na 想去学就英文学吧，就是完了的。想去身边想去身边当么的时候呢，想去学就英文的了，看这些过的啥呢？你爬着的些吧主当，离我不去了，些这个年纪那呢，你打到我是告诉爸爸爬着些吧主，你对那个你随便发现了我这个了啊，对的，告诉爸爸。
So here we're on the process of receiving the teachings on how to cultivate bodhicittas. When speaking about cultivating studying, engaging in the studies of how to cultivate bodhicittas, there are primarily two kinds of practices. One of this practice of six perfections and practice of integrating disciples, the four practices of integrating disciples. So here now, at this point, we're on the process of studying or learning how to cultivate bodhicittas on the basis of studying the six perfections: the perfection of generosity, perfection of ethical discipline, and perfection of patience. So at this point, we are on the chapter of explaining, discussing on the perfection of patience.
다 가서 봐봐. 근데 이제도 천주 교화 개발 자세네. 근데 컨트롤 깨지면 지잖아. 근데 교화 개발 자사비 개선 정보를 해야 되네. 상주 선발을 넣어버려. 해서지. 근데 될 상주 선발 장지 연구 말에. 근데 개론도 아니 다 된저기 더 선발 선발 간저지라. 근데 컨트롤 깨지면 지잖아. 개선 정보를 해서 이게 그 가서게 또 이론지 전에. 근데 뒤가도 들려야 돼요.
So we're on the particular chapter of the perfection of patience, where he talks about, there are some scholars who believe that, who says that when speaking about destruction of one's root virtue by one instant of generating anger, which is directed towards bodhisattvas. And whereas others said that it is not necessarily to bodhisattvas, but said someone who is perfectly observing the rules or ethical disciplines, or such as monks and novice, fully ordained monks and novice monks, nuns, and so forth. So long as you are generating such intense anger towards those or hatred towards those beings, it will become a cause of destruction of one's root virtue and so forth. Roots of virtue, sorry.
동문대게 편 가서 노인 시장에 되게 샤츠에 편 소소. 근데 대중가 저기 샤츠에 저와이나 장샤던데 저와이나 소소기 수포네 미게 저이 세제 사실로 투기 받에네 되게 장도냐발라네 콜로지 저거 동지에 네 사이 선나도 사그레 손데 되게 도기 치데네 다른 가서 가서 되네 예수와 대중가서 샤이 편 소야지요.
So it says now, this sutras, we are bringing this compendium of the perfections from the previous teachings, where it talks about the benefits of. It also talks about the benefits of prostrations, right? When we are engaging in the practice of prostrations, particularly the full length prostrations. So you accumulate the virtue. You accumulate the virtue, the number of virtue or the amount of virtue that you accumulate by means of doing this full length prostrations is equal to the dust or the atoms that are equal to your length of your body underneath your body, in other words, not only on the surface of the earth, but rather all the way, till it reaches the golden base of the earth. So this also talks about the benefits of engaging in the practice of prostrations.
딱 기당 하마 지 자가게 나네다 뜻을 던져도 벤트다 던져 양 경로 세다 되면서 뭔가 저러데 되게 그릴라서 받던 가르쳐보나 다 디노를 짜도 세모라서 최대성도 와 던져게 집었다 뭐 뭔가 저비 짜도 세모라서 최대적인 될라 아니 샤페비 표현 던지여서나 아니 될레 도바 얘는 예바 가린 월세디 오마들은 제차는 이미 송고도 와
So here now it is linking, why we are saying this is it actually links that if you are, so then it also talks about, the benefits or the virtue that you may have accumulated by means of circumambulating and prostrating and making an offerings to the hairs and the nails, the relics of those, great masters. There's a tradition, the Nalinda tradition, of keeping the masters, the great masters, the realist masters, when they pass away to nirvana, and they collect their hairs and nails and putting inside, storing those nails and hairs as a relics and inside the stupa, and people circumambulate the stupa and making an offerings and prostration to that. So it talks about how much virtue that you may accumulate by means of such practice. If this is the case, then someone who has who has such a high, realization of high spiritual realizations, if we were to have some kind of negative thought towards those beings, then you also accumulate negative karma, just as you accumulate positive karma by means of just mere circumambulating their hairs and their, their nails. Then if you generate negative thoughts towards the person who has such realizations, then you also accumulate a great amount of negative karma.
맞죠. 자가게 내제 던져도 최대로 춘주 노도보다 뭐지 제도 디시트에 힘아 던져 집어 담바 옛날에 경로세다 되면 던져 공부 좀 거라 근데 그러게 최대선을 장에서 대해성도 단데 가서 내제 던져도 최대로 춘주 노도보다 뭐지 제도
So if you have visited the sacred sites of India, and you may be familiar with seeing a lot of different stupas, and all of the stupas actually contains the bones and hairs and the nails of those great beings of the past. So that really help us to develop our spiritual realizations.
딱 가서 그냥 상상 배진된 인사성에 시바는 세단데만 영화 거제 잠된데 갈아와데 로스 테몬자와 뒤데 잔된데는 되게제 소도스 대인사요.
잘하네.
당기면로고에 소도지. 다 잔된데 저게 잔된데지 경험이 게예자와 대답을 쳐와 소나 니들이 다 잔된데 게예자와 대답 강도세 세바단 서바단 용스 상와 용스 세반 저러 녀와고 제타 청바 청바 셔바 마시원다 메바 셔바 대답은 녜마토 때 녀와고 대 계유 자와 첨보 다 서바 용스 상와 용스 세반 저러 녀와고 대다야나 이제는 가올라 세진여고 맞잖아 넘바 셔바다 제비 류라 따면 자지신 그셰
So now let's read through the Lam Rim text. It's on page 155. We're on this the last. I think look at the paragraphs. I think it says. Then the Venerable Upali, who was located off the site from where the Bhagavan was seated, bowed with hands joined and respectfully and asked, the Bhagavan has said that this monk's root of virtue are so great, O Bhagavan. How are those roots of the roots of virtue used up, diminished, erased, and extinguished? Upali, when such a sin as malice is done to fellow practitioners, it is like a wound or maiming. I cannot say its full impact. Upali, this diminishes, erases, and extinguishes those great roots of virtue. Therefore, Upali, if you would not feel malice toward a burnt, if you are not feel malice toward a burned stump, that needs what need to mention feeling that way toward a body with the consciousness.
그렇지. 또 되게 데려와 강이 데려 등적이 표현이 나오나 님이 가르려서 나서나 아니 맞아 도 선보 셔버서서 뭐저한테 주로라고다 아니 지 등적을 타니 제거로 이나 대 쳐버쳐만 가제 런던 다시 팀바를 등적을 도 선보 셔버서 등적을 고아이여로.
So here now it says, Upali, if you would, feel, if you would not feel malice toward a burned stump, what need to mention feeling that way toward a body with consciousness? It is referring to the other sentient beings. It not necessarily be someone really, the person who is highly realist, spiritually realist beings. In fact, it says to someone, or it is to perfectly observing the ethical disciplines and so on. So it actually, accumulate negativities by, having a feeling of malice towards all other beings as well.
이거는 아주 좋은 데는 타내줘야지. 아니 서버당 용수 상황당 용수 세바 생겨대. 아니 개자대니 세바 쳐와다 세바 전에 세바 첨부세네. 세바 천지 총선을 받자는 게 적으로 손도나는 제거다.
So then also he says, it says, the Bhagavan has said that the monks' root of virtue are so great. The Bhagavan, how are those roots of the virtues are diminished? It talks about the diminished, erased, and extinguished, right? So, so there are many ways of actually diminishing, erasing, and extinguishing one's root of virtue.
다 간지 된주기 조선부 쉬어봐 된절이나 뭐나 대다에 나서 타기 대다에 진짜들이 지나 뭐나 지 변한 디기 관들이다 변한 진행 가와나야 세주 내버 메잖아 넘버셔버다 집이 릴라 따지면서 이제 변한 맞저기 지 소소 메티서 지라야 교로 장지야 너 세주 링하게 보면 교로 장지 내버셔나야 내버 요아이나 링하게 고ተ나다 따지면서 도지 고치래도.
So here the last sentence of this paragraph can have two meanings. The first that not only that one accumulate negative karma by means of engaging in negative deeds of the body, speech, and mind, body and speech, but even mere generation of negative motivations or inappropriate motivations will enable one to accumulate negative karmas. This is one way to understand.
Yeah, ben na ji shime se gora na shi menge ge ben shi kan je yang la da long xue da den zhe le yang ni ba no ba xie na yang ni pa ro bo le no yu na 아니 가사 류다 집에 샘발라다 네바체나다 시에 걸어와시지 베나 나시다 집에 가사라 네바시나다 시에 걸어와세요.
So then here it says, again here it says, if you would not feel malice toward a burned stump, it is talking about inanimate object. Then what need to mention feeling that way toward a body with consciousness, referring to sentient beings. The body with consciousness is referring to sentient beings or any other beings, not only that limited to sentient beings within the secular existence, unenlightened beings, but it includes enlightened beings as well.
되지. 딱 가져 가서겠지 가사가네. 소소를 겨와 튜베 매나야 겨와 여바데 매버서 매자기 된다라. 딱 대치고 말해. 된저기 컨트롤 된저기 제와디 니미데 아니 순리질라 컨트롤 사와에는 니미 쳐와래서네. 소소기 된저기 자차데 일을 신주 매자와제. 아니 류롱셔 개소다 제바세나리. 아니 라신 순리지 종이나야 샴바다 제와기. 장네 지 강연의 전문집에 추배지 좀 친절라. 님이다네. 동네 제투고야 돼. 다 되게 서자기 타마스네리 소속이 연예기 때와르지 자기도 와.
So this, if you look at this, particular paragraph where it suggests that one should always try one's best to not to engage in any negative deeds, whether it's from the body or speech or mind. Try one's best to actually refrain oneself from engaging in negative deeds of the body and speech and generating negative thoughts and negative thoughts and emotions with regard to other sentient beings, regardless of who they are. And this actually suggests that one should always try to engage in the practice of cultivation of the love and compassion towards all other sentient beings.
다wana 다 게자 좀스 되고 그제질 게자 좀 비되어서 나와이나. 네 게자 좀 비되네서. 마치 겨와는 진 제부뉴도 제비 네바 좀네 제분 짐바 장시데. 말아 셔다다 비 제분 짐바 인지 다동 제가 체나 라라게 제부 민지바 메데 제데 메지오 메데 제테빌랑 관계장 방지 사배범이나 뉴모베 사배범 미시비 셔로스 셰 케바 가시게 송송도 되지지제.
So then here it says some scholars position. Here it says some scholars position. The meaning of destroying the root of virtue is that in destroying the capacity of previous virtues to issue their effects speedily, you delay the issuance of their effects. So anger, for instance, will give its effects first, but it is certainly not the case that the seed of the root of virtue will not issue effects when they later meet with the requisite conditions. Because given that no mundane path can eliminate the seeds that are to be eliminated, it is possible to have elimination of the seed of the afflictions. Says.
도망가서 같이 되긴 되바데 지시해봐자. 거기 게자 종소리 게자 좀 되는데 아니 변에 대리도 원인 저번에부터 선임이고요나 선임이면도 왔잖아요. 나니 전에는 봐미 장르의 당상의 지제. 아니 장르의 땅바 가시질라 장르의 땅비 거라. 뒷바로라 매겨하긴 저번에 취미용 거래스. 얘는 저번 매겨하긴 저번 매지라야 단지 게자 종상이게 아니 저번에 저때 제대 쳐서나 양 게 저번 미시그래서 되게 같이 되는데 봐라.
So this is others' position where it is clearly mentioned that the meaning of the destroying the root of virtue is that the destroying the capacity of the previous virtue to issue the effects speedily. It actually delays the issuance of its effects. That's what it says, right? And you delay the issuance of their effects. So anger, for instance, it says, will give its effects, but it is certainly not the case that the seeds of the root of virtue will not issue effects when they are later met with the requisite conditions.
Teko Karisana, and the Geta Jones said the Tsawani in the Mepo, the Tsawani in the Pamba Chi, Gojo Mari, Karisana, Tendriki Tsawani in the Mepo, the Tepon to it, and Tendriki Pon to control down Miguel Yomares. Karicheresana, and Gawa, Jitembi, Sola de Jolan de Sige, and Sabe Pon to Edge Mewayena, Jitembi Land of Sige, Miguel Sabe Pomatuna, Miguel Gay Sabe the Karichan Pon to Res.
So therefore, it says, it's clearly mentioned that, given that no mundane path can eliminate it, the seeds that are to be eliminated, in other words, what it says, right? For instance, it says, now, once you have not actually eliminated the seeds, you will not be able to uproot the certain negativities, such as, the root of negativity, whatever the negativity that one may have committed cannot be purified completely so long as you have not been actually not been able to eliminate the seed of those negativities.
다 크기 전체데 그 전체 거야지 전체 되는 전체 되는 전체 되는 망해 반항돼서 다 라누기 돼 봐래.
So then it says that from one's own, it is one's own position. Okay, we have talked till now that we were actually talking about the position of others' opinion, but now we're our own position where we hold here. It says, reply, this reasoning is unsound because, as it says.
망해다 소수 주의 니버 따지 니버 따지 미겨와 장비 다방 사배 방바 매장 다수 제다 최장 남면 좀 미습이 시당 라나게 남면 쇼네 세비레 게메게 사배 방바 매장 신체 제다 최장 남면 좀 미습이 시당 전원 좀더 접어도 비체 로타다 년주 주비 메게 사배 마바장 제당 최당 로타다 년주 미습이 쇼로 송페.
So now here it explains, right, why this, the other's position or their reasonings are unsound. It is not an authentic reasonings. Why it says so. Here it says, now, even the purification wherein ordinary beings clear away a non-virtue by means of its remedy, the four powers of confession. It says, it's not an elimination of its seeds. Nevertheless, though the seeds of this non-virtue may later meet with the requisite conditions, they cannot issue effulgence. Even virtue and non-virtues, karma that are spent upon issuing their individual fruitions, do not lose their seeds. Nevertheless, even when the seed of such karma meet henceforth with the requisite condition, it is impossible for the fruition to arise.
다 맞아 된다 고대슈 되래. 가서 게자 정시대 게자 컨트롤전에 게자 정세나리 니보 떠기게 아니 미겨와 정세나리 정사디 젠더 채나양 남의 진접은 진시 말이에요.
So what this actually explained here is now, it actually explains that once you have already, purified your negativities by means of relying upon the four antidotes, four powerful antidotes, or it's also called the four powers of the confession. Once you have already purified those, then even that you may meet with the requisite conditions later, you will not the fruition of it will not issue the fruition of the negative deeds that one have done earlier, so long as one have already engaged in the practice of purifications by means of four powerful antidotes.
Geta the Chombala gets at the Pango Mare. Geta the Chonsana, Tazu, Tadon Chen the Chena, and Namin Jung, Missibachi Gore as well.
So destroying such things does not mean in eliminating the root of it. So therefore, it is just the example that we have here is that although that you have not actually eliminated the root of non-virtue, but you have actually destroyed the negativity that you have committed in the past by means of your practice of four powerful confession practices.
Karasana Jono Zemo Tosana, and Jono Zemo to be Kansaki Jela Jes, Lota Jeba Sigmare. Inaya Ku Lota Panyare Sana Payamare. And the Jono Zobatosona Zoto Neso Yoma Tosidi, Jono Zobatosona Neso de Jeba Sigmare. One Neso to be led Panyare Sana Payamare.
So now here, this example is when you attend the, it says the example here is now, when you attend the peak and the forbearance level of the path of preparation, right? Path of preparations, the second and the third of four levels of the path of preparations, you do not eliminate the seeds of the non-virtues that cause wrong views and miserable rebirths. Nevertheless, even though the seed of the non-virtue may meet with the requisite conditions, they cannot give rise to the wrong views or the miserable rebirth. In other words, if although when you are on the peak level of the path of preparations, when you have reached the peak level of path of preparations, although that you have not actually eliminated the seed of wrong views, you have not eliminated the seed of wrong views, but such a practitioner or such an individual is not vulnerable to having the wrong view later on. Similarly, if someone who is individual who is on the path of forbearance, they are on the path of forbearance, although such individual have not actually eliminated the seed of law realms. In other words, that miserable realms, they are not vulnerable to take a rebirth in the miserable realms. This is what it means. Yeah.
So Pansona, Tibasumba Kano, Panam Matapado, and Jipa Kano, Pansi, Tanya de Yonsakura Marwa, Intimidate Daming also to be Lochi Pangum Chevroa, Susujola Daming also to be Loya Marwa.
So when it comes to the complete elimination of the delusion or the one of the afflictions, elimination of affliction must be done on the basis of application of direct antidote towards that. The application of direct antidotes towards one of those afflictions, either one of those afflictions must only be applied, would only be able to to apply only when the individual, the practitioner, is achieved the level of Arya. In other words, level of the noble, the person should be on the level of Arya. Without achievement of Arya's level, there's no way that individual can apply direct antidotes towards afflictions or the delusions. Let's take a 10 minutes break here. Oh, let's listen.
Yeah. Tangani get this my lotion in the Delta. Jono Zabatane, Joshima Messi Casa, Nenrocho Mississippi Shadans. Jan Hatrambi Ledge, Koa Jagandan, Shesombata. Give me gig a leg, Molamibate, Reshile, Legend and Mimbi, Coco Gajan, Tetanji Gion, Miguel and Jomba, Jamination, Masombi Sherosa. Reshinami Jansi Batsan, Gets a Jombi turned to Mironte, Gentana Miguel, Tauchen Tanchi gets a Jonje to Son Gobi Shero Sondu. 대바도 질로 샤르치.
Actually,
We're turned in that.
so it says now, furthermore, the reasoning is unsound because, as the earlier citations, Vasubandhu's Teacher of Knowledge, auto commentary says, as to the action that give rise to cyclic existence, there are those that are weighty, those that are near, it says, and those to which you are habituated, and those you did earliest. Among this, the former will ripen first. Any virtues or non-virtuous actions that comes to fruition does temporarily stop the opportunity for the fruition of other actions. However, it is not said, nor can it be established, that that a mere preceding fruition destroys virtue or the non-virtues, nor it is appropriate for destroying the root of virtue to mean that the mere temporary postponement of fruition, otherwise it would absurdly follow that all powerful non-virtuous actions must be considered destroyers of the root of virtue.
대기 개척 가르치고선 단지 이게 가서 개차 좀 비던데 장선 비던라 장선 버스는 장 렌즈 땅 비던데라 네 개차 좀 비던다 되게 말해서
So destruction of, so here now what we are actually, by refuting the other's position here. The others said that just postponement of the fruition of one's whatever the deed that one may have committed is not the meaning of destroying the virtue, root of virtue. This is not what it meant.
대 가르치는 가서 뒤에 얘기야. 그 공부관도 교하고 공부관 하나하나 남이져서 아니 전체질의 개서 좀 세고 말 가르치잖아. 아니 강사질에 아니 gem게니게 레트 또 냥바지요 아니나. 아니 동부 제부 가르치는 해거를 셀러서나 아니 교화도 매교 아니로 공부 가르치는 슈쳐와이나 델레 제부는 평을 나와리 대상지 개서 좀 배도는 로고 말해서.
So it is not that you're it's just ripening the former or the ripening, the whichever is more powerful, the ripening of the fruition of one's deed is considered to be a destroying the root of virtue. This is not what it really means here, nor it is meant to those who did earliest among this and so forth. That this is not what it means. Whether the ripening earlier or whether it is ripening, whether the ripening of the fruition is earlier or whether it is ripening of the fruition due to the intensity of the karma, the destruction of the root of virtue is not what it meant.
아니 단지 같이 동버디 가 단대데 같이 동버디 까위요 같이 천하게 로도 쳐와이나 아니 레겨와 떡 쳐와이나 레겨와 떡 쳐와데 메겨와 종지 라그레 야나 메겨위 레슈 쳐와이나 게위레 종지선 라그메 제거리에서 센터나.
So then here it says so any non-virtuous actions come to fruition does temporarily stop the opportunity for the fruition of the other actions. However, it is not to say, nor can it be established that a mere preceding fruition destroys virtue or non-virtue.
그렇지. 나는 좀 오늘만 더 그러게 동리 제일 적고 단단히 너버도 창조하고 와자. 아니 저번 장신부 장지 계좌 좀 배정을 자고 말에 계좌 정세에 계좌 자원이네 방법 고고 말에서 되니데 해봐자.
So now here, just by postponing the fruition doesn't really means that you have actually destroyed the root of virtue or the root of non-virtue. Nor it can be said that just mere purifying that virtue, the non-virtue, doesn't mean eliminating the root of non-virtues.
대 가르르잖아. 아니 메게게 레지 사베 뽀말라네. 아니 파파토그로와 수수 주어도 달라 게 메게와 좀바 여러와시 대 기타지. 니바들 다지 되지. 장생바다 장리를 tomba 생인데 또 가르쳐서 대녀를 메고래 또 중화대 제라 하거래 될 장생바 세거와 대상적 계산 좀 고집면도 와시디 소소기 단다도 제바 셰로도 제제도 제.
So here it's clearly mentioned that just by destroying that doesn't mean that you are actually eliminating the root of the non-virtues. For instance, that if you have actually purified your non-virtues, whatever the non-virtuous action that you may have committed in the past, that you have purified by means of application of four powerful confession, you have purified, but you have not eliminated the root of that non-virtue. Because when it comes to the elimination of the root of non-virtue, it can only be done when one achieves the level of arhatut, or not the level of arya, only when you become an arya. That's all.
다 대나지 내가 로벤 레덴지 내사 하시바다 미겨와 떠시 장바다 로다다 내세지 계자 좀바 니가 사변 양바 제당 최장 누구 민중와 다동 제당 최장 제번 중민이비 제번 지민이바 송소 강이 된다 지바래.
So now here it says, therefore, concerning this, the Master Baba Viveka states, as already explains, that in the case of both the purification of non-virtues by the four powers of confession and the destructions of the root of virtue by wrong views and malice, the seed of the virtue or the non-virtues cannot give rise to effects, even though they may later meet with the requisite conditions. Just as a spoiled seeds will not give rise to sprouts, even though they may meet with the requisite conditions.
대양 하시바다 디바사바 따지 장베 다장 랑고마 제와 디베송아 민가와다 카치라 짐바 땅와다 추춘송이 제벌론쇼 표송소바 정와 답 시 정양 땅와다 판센라 공비 셰바 주틴지 하양 짐바당 추춘지 게자제와 좀미니바 땅송도 카치라 남핀 카치라 남게 추춘라 소비 셰바 주틴지 진짜 선종와 중앙양 아마레 중앙네 류동롱쇼 피송 소반 중앙 피송 소반 중앙 민중 바탕 카지라 하시바다 론테토비 샹센라 컨트롤 마제레 컨트롤 마제나 깨바지게 아려 조바 드네비 란체 토바 가시 컨트롤사바 깨지네 마레 제나 란테 줄레 제와 마타양 깨바지게 인제 란저바 데베송아 따베데 도나 아니 메게 로샤이다 도나 메게완 데발랑 데이 셰바 가이 탕치 다 메게바단 자와 게와 좀바 데이 셰바 가이 탕치 좀 메게바 산 메게 산냥 모서도 어디바 지로샤죠 또 아림보니 된다데 지바레셔 같이 셔
나소름 질렀어. So here it says, moreover, as already explained, even though you cleanse your accumulation of sins through purification by the four powers, this does not contradict the fact that you are slow to produce higher path. Accordingly, for some person, anger destroys anger destroys, for instance, their resources and excellent body, the respective effect of giving gifts and safeguarding ethical discipline, but is unable to destroy their ability to easily produce root of virtue. Again, through giving gifts and safeguarding ethical discipline by means of causally concordant behavioral effect of their habituation to generosity and the attitude of abstentions. For other persons, anger destroys the continuous occurrence of similar type of causally concordant virtue behavior, virtuous behavior like ethical, self-discipline, and so on, but does not destroy the occurrence of the excellent body, resource, and so forth. Some bodhisattvas realize a path through which they progress to perfection within one eons. For instance, if they do not generate anger towards the bodhisattvas who has obtained a prediction of his or her upcoming enlightenment, as explained earlier, if they produce a single angry thought towards such a bodhisattvas, this path is not expelled from their mind stem, but their progress on the path becomes slower on the length of eons.
되게 된다더니 게 동보된 저기 춘춘주자고 변화로와 하시바다지 니버 떡이기 디바 다나야 랑고마 제발라 갈레송 때는 가와야 말세대로 나서 변화 디바데 상사나 게일로도 제 나서 제빙해 봐요 말와 게일로도 제발로 연조 변화 디바 다세데 가서 사시 싸마서 봐라 사기 싸마서 비테네 아니 강전에 게일로도 제 그러면 디바 다바상지 또바라지레 제빙해 봐요 말와.
So here now, one thing that one needs to understand here is, just by purifying your negativity doesn't mean that one gain high levels of realizations immediately. That is what it meant. When speaking about purifying one's negativity, is you're actually cleansing your negativity. You actually, it's almost like you're actually, cleaning your place. First, you clean the place. And then having cleaned the place, then you arrange whatever that you want to be arranged. So similarly, you are actually cleansing your negativities. That doesn't mean you are actually, gaining spiritual realizations right after the cleansing of your negativity.
The departed that habit any gay lotto chiching so 지 sembato hulde jambo yobikona ni ganji jana mi ba ne to sumbato tani yo ande chachen zambi tone geilo ton joba chawala ken ngepa to goya jiro mato deba taba sanji to baranji le lansa chegre esana chegmarwa.
Purification is very important, because having purified one's negativities, one can then prepare for the arousal of spiritual realizations. But as soon as you purified your negativity, doesn't mean that you gain the high levels of realizations.
그렇지. 다만 카실로 가는 요거에서 변의 심바 동안의 추출소와 답을 빼자와이나. 진비기 남이 저버데 제마론셔 조아데 추출제 아니 저버데 론셔 가서 남이 저버데 대환 조아로와. 된저기에 남이 저버데 유해데 쪼나양 양 가사코로 셰바 주텐데 마정바 요레스 양코로 지 대다 메나양 연주 추주소와라 가보다 조바가와라 가보 요야데 니 셰바 주텐기 남에 쪼나양 셰바 주디 쪼마도 바 용거레서.
So there here now it's clearly explained that accordingly for some person anger destroys, for instance, their resources, excellent body, and respective effects of giving gifts and safeguarding the ethical discipline. But it is unable to destroy their ability to easily produce root of virtue. Again, through giving gifts and safeguarding ethical discipline by means of the causally concordant behavioral effect of their habituation of generosity and attitude of abstentions.
카실라 카실라 아니 하마 사샹이 되게 저부 피송소 발론셔바 용바 가시지라야 진짜 진짜스 지마 쉬니 문도기 된저야 게자 정도 지여래서요. 그러나 유마기 저부터 창소 조사나요. 아니 될 다른 같이 니 조금 민도 생이게 됐다 가서 녀토지 주고로 와. 진짜 진짜스 내면 통해 되는 용거래서.
So then here, for other persons, anger destroys the continuous, occurrence of the similar type of the causally concordant virtues behavior, like ethical self-discipline and so on, but does not destroy the occurrence of an excellent body resource and so forth. So this is, this actually happened to us. Sometimes it is due to our, to the causally concordant virtues or non-virtuous behaviors. One may, at the moment that one may engages in the practice of purifications, and once you have engaged and once you have completed engaging in such purifications, and then for some reason you become so exhausted, so you don't go further, continual of your practice. So this is what it happens to us. It's a fact of the experience that we all have this experience.
yang bena longten tabe sana yang shangchu samba tendela yang control kechi ma chi ge ne geza chong na yang ni geza chong de ge gojil ne de la ni bena chi pa jang ren de dong ro ni zo be sanje de le bena nga so ge ge ba ji no le sanje ji go ba ta yi na ni ge ba ji le sanje ji go ba ta ma to je yun ju ge ba ji le so tue be sa ge de ge geza chong de de men chong ba ji gojil men do a 개바지 yin any job data so so do
Nima, you're muted.
Ye gola zisha rumche.
ale ya
Ye did have I been muted this entire session?
da ko do gen ma
Ye did mute session sare.
yeah
Can't say. Kanda China nge dagi. Tati kon log yo da ma gwe na ka shi chu.
ma ko ta ra choose me ba chas da ko do
Oh, let's rumche.
da ko do ta nge ta ji de da ngani longten to be shansan la ge ni chwa ke chi ma chi ge ni zo be shang chu job de ni ke chi ge de re do re ki pe na ke chi la sang je de se le de na shansan le chu bi jian xian na ke chi ke ba chi cho tu be sa ge den zhe yin yong go de den ne zhong ba chi guo ji men do
So here now, this destruction of root virtue is not something that you have completely destroyed you have completely uprooted your the virtue. This is not what I mean by the destroying the root virtue. It is not something that it is impossible for you to actually accumulate virtue later on. That is not what it means. It actually is, slow down your achievement of enlightenment. For instance, if you are supposed to gain state of enlightenment within one eon, it may delay your achievement of enlightenment by means of generating anger or hatred towards bodhisattvas. It will delay your state of enlightenment, achievement of your enlightenment.
ta tere da do na se de nga so ko len ga se tere da do na me ge wan da ba di she ba kan yin thang chi ni da me ge ba da ge wa chong ba di she ba kan yin thang chi chong mo ge san nyao mo se de tere ge sa chong chi tere da.
So here it says now, it's clearly mentioned, but it says in brief, right? Or not, in brief. Just as in the case of purification of non-virtues, there is no need to purify every behavioral effect. So with respect to the destruction of the virtue, there is no need to destroy every behavioral effect. However, every behavioral aspect. Yeah,
되지. 당 가서 개자 좀 말했으디 근데 개자 되게 남이지 저부터 셰바 탄지 좀 해봐면 좋아. 아니 몇 개월지 좀 봤으디 남이던 저부터 셰바 강가 좀 해봐면 좋아.
So when speaking about the destroying one's root of virtue, that doesn't mean you are actually completely, wiping out your virtue. You're eradicating, complete eradication of your virtue. This is not what it means. Similarly, if you are actually, purifying your negativities, the root negativities, that doesn't mean that you are actually eradicating the entire negativities.
야, 뭐 좀비에 쳐봐요 말어. 겨와 답 쳐보다 미겨 또 쳐보 인서나 아니 셰바도 지티니가 좀 남에다 소가 좀이 여러와.
So there are some negativities, it has certain powers which can actually, destroys our causally concordant, effects or the, ripening effects and so forth.
되지. 네, 저르모지게 타진의 소문도아. 아니, 뭐거선 양모 와서는原장 대개체신 상제기 상제 냐지기 손도 될라 템비 리발라 때네 시에가 관한하에 레바소로라 따라 시에바 샤오 세터 된디.
So here now, Lama Tsongkhapa has stated now here, it says, however, as this is important and as it is critical to analyze it using the scriptures of the unique Buddha and the reasoning based on them. You should research the scriptures well and do an analysis.
되지. 뺀내가 전부 뺀내가 저기 신고기를 용서다가 니지미지 상제送了 때는 마도 내가写个 말은 가서 제단 점을린데는 순리진으로 마시는 전에 개체적으로 이시에서 질 개체적으로 이치에서 될 개체적인 되게 러버데 단다 이 마찬가 아니 배제 다 다시스게 매요로 왔다 야나 라니기 셰바진의 셰바기 조토 그래 대마도는 아니 이치에서 질 저거래 이치비 개체 셰바 되니라 이치 되네 냥녀전에 강전에 다 도바 장질이 제터 제보로 와.
So just as when we are doing something and you get stuck and you don't know how to continue on your work, and you have to ask someone who is qualified to give you the instructions. Similarly, when it comes to the shinko, which means the extremely obscure phenomena, something that cannot be understood by means of reasonings and so forth, then in which case, where it says, in which case it's a very, very important to rely on authentic scriptures. That's all.
야, 근데 다 얘나 농라 템비게나 농라 양 셰바 손제 답이 농생이 되려 양 될라 리베 자든 전에 제바기 소소기 로이 슈체겐 다이나 아니 단다 제바 제는 로이어를 농라 제바 제는 로이어.
So then it's entirely depends on one's ability. If one has a higher ability to analyze even the scriptures, then by analyzing scriptures, you may be able to find a reasonings where that can enables you to understand the meaning that has been stated in the text.
내가 저기 대 계주기 따다 대외 메시 가서 데려와 진변론시 친지 대시변론데 제제 시선 가서 랑기 대지 때는 뭐와인데 시선 답변론이 비슷해서는 대양 다그네 주에게 제생한다 여러와.
So therefore, we have logical reasonings or by syllogistic reasonings by saying that by engaging in the practice of generosity will result to abundant resources, and by engaging in restraining from negative deeds in other words, observing ethical discipline, one will experience happiness as a result. It is because now the reasoning is here. It is because the pure reasonings, it's the pure reasonings, pure three analytical reasonings.
Song la tene togu se de that's so shu jene and tujin jong no chen ji mi ji jong chen mo la da shu jong chen mo da shu se de na je na de da ga su nyang ga shu ji ye do ro da ji nga su zhuo de song mo de ne kan ni zhuo de song gu du se na ni lo zhuo chen de zhuo song ge se de ro.
So here now His Holiness, this is why the reason why His Holiness always emphasize on studying and learning and reading the great text or the theatres written by the great masters.
peche tanda nga so ge tanda kyangmo ji ko so de ge ji chinle do ji la nga so choba jene sing pa ji ta ji na nga so be ka chen jo che go peche sanje ge temba da ne zong de ni sha se yong su zo ba le yong chimo ma chi seng de peche ta sa ba yin sa ro ji semo wa gi ko la chen yo ba de na na ma sanje she ju de do re do.
So now when we think about undertaking the rigorous studies of the teachings of the Buddha, it is quite new to even the Tibetans, or when it comes to the lay people. Of course, the fully ordained and by the monks, they have gone through the rigorous studies for many years, right from the beginning, right from at the time of Buddha himself. The monks and fully ordained monks and the novice monks, they have gone through the rigorous studies. But when it comes to our general public or the lay people, it is very new. It has been emphasized very strongly by His Holiness and asking impartially, regardless of whether they are nun or monks, or they are not monks, they are lay people, or they are renunciates. And His Holiness actually emphasized and encouraging continuously to undergo the rigorous studies of the teachings of the Buddha.
Jeromochi toje dinema de son de soso ki toba che basen de son de ne zane jinro chen shi de jeno chura simbo ma je ken la shi de jang son de da ani chi ta de chi be chin na jong chen bo le ju go se de jeromochi ge ba chi tumo ma yin ba sen na de ke ma re da ba ke bi ge nong ju de sa de je do.
So therefore, if you look at the Dokje Dilemma, one of the writings of the Lama Tsongkhapa has stated that, it is critical. It also says it is crucial to follow the teachings of the great masters of the two sprim and then 6 ornaments and so forth.
Ani laba da nga chwa ko re peche nga chon de no la de nga chon de inchi tan de je ro ji ko ye oman ju ba da nang de za wa den chi go ne na ni nga the no ro bi ko la the da se gi ni je ban bi da pal da na oman ju ba da chang ye le shen jin bo da den chu chi ge so da de zhe yi zhong chen bo le chen ye je se de ba ha jia gi ce tong bo ro
mu je sui ka tin nang du song ben ba
da na nga chon ro ji ja se gi de ji de no lo la za ni ma chi 다지라 자니마 티지 튀기리 자뱀발 아니 니마 오만주바 튀 디저 나제 자와던 튀기리 좀 참고 강로와.
So, so therefore, it is always good to follow such teachings of the Madhyamaka and any
not just out
and and the epistemology by the Dharmakriti. So this is actually really a good that I always appreciate what the Roger Jackson is actually going through all those teachings, and he's helping other beings, other followers, the practitioners, to understand those great teachings of the Buddha. Kevin got to know Masarumji. So then also in Taiwan, when I went to Taiwan, there are some the students, they're actually studying the Buddha Palitas and the Madhyamaka Avatara by Chantikriti, and also the Lama Tsongkhapas, the Eulogans of definitive and interpretive.
So this is so that on the this country Changolo Senachi, Mason Tamima Gasamazan, Buki Chang over the Jangoro da Chin lesson or Digi Chin, Chin, the Tanga to pay, continue on Senjala, Moncha Gita, Tarilo to Tang in the Petty from Senjala Tani, and the Gunkatandola, and the Lojutan in Yambache, Dama, Berno. You what to say?
Now, even in Tibet, it is because of the encouragement of His Holiness. Even in Tibet, now they are in the lay communities are so, enthusiastically, studying those great deities, and even in the village, there are many who are actually memorizing those texts, and they are, letting those great masters to actually test their memorizations and their understanding. So, which is really a good change.
Taking Nanga, Sinchang Dansha Sanara, Zepakin the song and Zepacho in Setero. Sanja song in Zepate, too big, turned it in too big, Dreme de Bane, and Ganja no Tobarajili, Chetajimado, Telejame Langa Mandora. Then you want a tombo, any Taji law Nagi, Shannon to Tombo catcher or Masopa Ripata, Debutona Sanachi Thousand a day. Shuji Teredo, Shuchamberedo.
So it is therefore we find in the text by the praise to dependent originations by Lama Tsongkhapa, where he has stated that among the activities of the Buddha, the activities of the speech of the Buddha is supreme among all the activities, which is really true, because it is by means of receiving the teachings of the Buddha, which is the Buddha's speech, one can, light and illuminate the lights of the wisdom, so that actually dispels the darkness of ignorance. So therefore, and it is important to rely on an authentic teacher or the qualified teachers to receive the teachings. So, however, as we're reading through the text again. However, as this is important and it is critical to analyze using the scriptures of the unique Buddha, unique Buddha, and the reasoning based on them, and you should research the scriptures as research the scriptures well and do an analysis. Thus, the invisible faults of the anger, and that it projects its own fruitions, which are extremely unpleasant, and that it prevents the arising of the measurable, very pleasant fruitions of its opposite virtue.
네. 다 컨트롤이 미션에 가서는 강에 trende에 쫙 가르래. 근데 가서게 통대에 컨트롤이 쫙 가르래. 세대는 뒤연체 된 가서게 마통의 미션이 강에 trende에 돼.
So what is the visible fruitions that we may experience by means of generating anger? What is the invisible fruition that we may experience by means of generating anger and so forth? But up until now, we have covered the invisible fruitions that we may gain out of generating angers.
되지. 그랑게 남의 이도 뭐 그때는 용돼야지. 강에 가대는 trende야지. 그 가래이나 세대 가서 배바에는 뭐저도 셔대제 뭐지 봐도 그래. 좋아. 그래서 뭐쇼 지소는 전적이 컨트롤을 셔다도 전적이 님이 받지는 손에 제거 말에 도와지는 내 제미로서는 있는 거 소절 뭐저기 뭐고 요거.
So whenever there's something uneasy feeling or the discomforts is happening to individual, we never ever try to think of that is the result of our own negative thoughts such as anger, hatred, animosity, and so forth. We never thought of that. In the Tibetan community particularly, when that happens to them, and they always look for a different solutions by approaching masters to do some divination for them. That is what is happening. And they, many people are actually approaching me as well, just to asking me to perform some divinations and so forth. However, it is not so. It is not so. It is all the result of one's own negativities.
되지. 전적이 컨트롤되게 랑라 남의 이도 뭐 체다고 패바 마세. 현재 남의 이도 뭐 뭔가 용하나. 이는 고전 정에 대한 아니 컨트롤을 소바에 님이래 손도.
So therefore, it says that not only that becomes an unpleasant fruition for oneself, but also it causes unpleasant fruition for others as well. Anger.
다원아 다 통치기 님이라 컨트롤당 셰당을 뜻하기 아니 배적 동선은 가서 통치를 강에 같이 체그래 해야 돼.
So now the next, it talks about the faults of anger, the visible in these lifetimes.
통치지님이 내 손도와 이 시신 대반영수 민용아 당 가와당 대왕 하여 지진 심한 메터바당 이미 배신 세내的那边 땜반영바당 세당 채나 나 진지장의 장 진제네 서바당 자시지장 자시지장 수네 방와당 옌베 뒤장 메데발로 소바테 현주래 손들.
The faults of the anger visible in this lifetime are that you do not experience a peaceful and good mind. Says the joy and happiness that you had previously perished, and you cannot regain them. You cannot sleep well, and you weaken the stability wherein your mind stays where your mind stays calm. When you have great hatred, even those for whom you formerly cared, forget your kindness and kill you. Even friends and relatives will get annoyed and leave you. Although you gathered others with your generosity, they will not stay, and so on. Engaging in the bodhisattva states.
되지. 내가 저 연유라고 컨트롤 슈침버사 샤단 슈침버상인데 셈바시와 여마로와.
So it is true, right? We all experience that. Someone who get agitated, someone who get annoyed, someone who get angry very easily, and this person's mind is always in and not in peace.
아니 흘려요 말어 롱롱이 가리는 속에서 뭐 차도도 대범매와 흘려매와
Person will not always not in calm. Always, the person is not in a peaceful situation.
아니 가와다 대화데 요 세보세 자로와
Suddenly such individual will not be happy, not experiencing happiness and so on. It's obvious.
가와다 대화세디 변화 코 매질 컨트롤사사당 힘아 그 님보다 참보이다 님만 정도 되는 기본 용어에 하여든 지도에 무슨 쪽으로
미체에게 순한 가디하고
변화로 너무도 지를 찾아와이나 다 컨트롤의 세단 수치보여나 이는 힘아 참보여나를 참보여 말에 힘아 대화의 기본 코투선의 기본의 가와용에 대한 매가 차도로 하여 지진송도
It actually destroys our good relationship one's own family. This is very obvious, right? It is all happened because of our anger and our hatred. If you may be you may have a very good relationship with your loved ones or your families or your friends and so on.
다치 미신다를 받자나다 제다 맞아베 소소의 지시나 컨트롤의 가지 수천보여디 힘을 주고 지보다 효력이 지여나 명예 차로도
And the individual may be a very calm and very nice at the sometime, but then when this anger or hatred, pride, when it actually take place in your heart and your emotion, and you will and even though that you have been a very calm and very nice and very good person previously, but when you let this arise in your continuum, and it will destroy all the peace of mind.
control 개념다도 그저 소사와이나 디젤로 소소교서 버슈지 가는 연주 슈지 상보체 때만도나 나이게 대화다 가와데 냐스 소투고 말이에요. 그 바로는 괜찮다고 하네. 컨티뉴미.
So if you're unable to combat with those negative thoughts and emotions such as anger and hatred, so then it will not let restore our happiness, our calm mind, our peaceful mind, and so forth.
아니 니 집어 그거 말이에요, 손도아. 아니 생각 때문에 연구 말이에요.
You will not have a good sleep, it says here, right? Not have a good sleep, get annoyed.
다 생내도 뭐보는 생을 땡쳐내고 말이로.
So then, if you're unable to, have a calm mind, then your steadiness of your mind will not be there.
다시 제다파 유쇼다 통출기 동기 때에 저기 칼라사에 옛날에 그때나 그 배치 강가야 짜 되도 손대지마도 어예지는 미도아 세네도 보마스디.
So then it is, we all experience that, right? That when you are in intense anger, when you are angry for some reason, not only that, but it also, not only that, it which cause discomfort mentally, but also physically, looks are not a really attractive looking person. And also it will lose your appetite. You don't even want to eat.
다시 제단 쳇다나 나 진짜 장바트의 진로 돈에 세바 소아 용거를 손도아.
So then it says, like, even those for whom you formerly cared, forget, and your kindness, and then kill you, says, right?
라바데 내가 가서 뺏게 쳐버다. 롱터 처보이나 사실적 쓰이는 방법을 세우는데 딱 코디냐도다 내내요. 뭐도 롱 차잖아요. 집어지는 민두세나 코드 장르에 대해 사실은 뭐지 제거로.
So even friends and relatives will get annoyed and leave you. So you will be left alone by your own relatives and so forth.
사실 지장 수인의 방생에 대해 백과 전부를 민지 tenje kelene ni su long samwe ne tel jinse sando ne long de manjachi ni pasho tel tes ba tene ro tenje kelene to na ni rashinje yongore senge tel khati jatu gore.
So in which case, it's a phrase it's that even friends and relatives will get annoyed and leave you alone, leave yourself, and you will be left alone. So in which case, it's really telling, So think about the faults of this anger. What happens if anger arises? If you let this anger arises in you, if you embrace anger and hatred, then what's going to happen to us? So therefore, think about the dependent originations. Whatever that you have, which is a link, it will always give rise to its fruitions. Everything that is dependent upon something.
Jimbe dijo medeba sendo ani pena nga so ina chi long so ba tene na ko nyamba ne je ne nyamba tele gabo chena ya khitile denye modong te karere jimbe dijo ni medeba se kaje kono yo long shu peze kase ta na kono long sa ta ne kole khok mare.
Although you gather others with your generosity, they will not stay, right? Even though you are pretty generous, giving gift to others and so on and so forth. So long as the people know that you are so, easily get annoyed or you easily get enriched or get angry and so forth. And people will always, regardless of what you do, people will always stay away from
This kanga nga so nyanyu to ne nyochi yin san de so so le yoba de ma so bi so ji yin san ne an de la khate jane khate na shamba da zewa khase ki ten tu tu khonju khate la shamba da zewa re zo ba wa.
So this is all, we all experience it. This is not something that we do not experience and we're just theoretically, explaining it. But this is something that we all experienced. So therefore, always put an effort to apply antidotes towards anger and hatred, which are the practice of love, compassion, and practice of patience and so on.
Da so de ja de so yu so da nga zo ge ani da de ren ji ta chu se ni ge ren ga sa be ni ge wan de chen be de so sa be ge wan na shu ji de da me to la de ne ani ja se shang chu sen be sha ba yi dong wa nyang sa len ne ren bo ma to ba ta ye be sen ja tang ji ge dong do zo be sang ji je ko ma nyong wa ne da to ba shu ni to ba xin je lo du su se ne ko ma da ma ni ga na da.
So let's do our prayers and dedications now. By means of engaging in this teachings, receiving the teachings, accumulating merits, and combining these merits with the merits that I have accumulated for 3 times, and putting effort to practice the bodhisattva's deeds. And it is due to these merits, may all sentient beings, may I establish all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment as swift as possible, and may all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions please bless me to be able to do this. Kada yamba gashi saba de lomi mare kedon jowa nare jaye ombo da ju dema sumbe zera gendo yang jambe yang ju zebe jezone
年别人不跟上浪就穷，年年主别见到年些手，让给姐姐多别那远，修着自为长月头给见，多月一节面包谁些年，要也等不有人在就见，等不人间就给我就我。乔张娘婆举别修的你这清白也让就把也偏的是我心不修，世间教育民众群的列住相处难觉人别讲，唐的难觉也难别的心，教育自把人都讲究见。朗诵主别点见主席见，夜间世界莫当明明根，切若更多教育好不言，朗这王莫就见，刚才贴吧出了去世间，期间住了怎么点原则，土点能就大多主席见。这些将子修就见，就是老面过在绕点见，那个成的修就结不能，老张点别正面撒双见，若有名声大多年就见，光着绕边过，眼光说别当的话，莫的永远。现日在我的人叫做要别身体不度点就急，要别抱怨其他情况，更多从不这样的见的，也到根据就是道路，给我的道堂的绕多，就说西边叫我到街。我刚了就都我不的，道经给别造我的根将，从不实现绕度我。哎呀，多钱呢？